Hello, dear adventurer. Tonight, you have chosen the quiet road instead of the crowded one. You have followed a map's faint promise to a place few others would willingly visit, a village called Fogfen Fisherstead. Resting at the edge of the salt pine woods, where the earth is soft with mist and the air smells faintly of brine and pine sap. The ink that marked its name on your map had nearly faded into the parchment's grain, as if even cartographers were uncertain whether Fogfen deserved remembering. You took that as a sign rather than a warning. You are new to questing. Fresh from your training, your boots still stiff at the ankles, your pack still organized in careful city fashion. Every potion wrapped in cloth, every ration counted twice. You told yourself that greatness would begin somewhere unlikely, that legends prefer humble soil in which to root themselves, and so you pointed to Fogfen and decided it would be here. The tavern greets you with noise and warmth and the scent of roasting meat that promises more than it delivers. The sign above the door creaks in the wind, its painted fish long ago chipped into abstraction. Inside, the ceiling beams sag slightly, as though weary from listening to too many small town stories told too many times. You sit with a skewer of Westfall chicken that tastes more of smoke than seasoning and sip mountain ale that feels thin and uncertain on your tongue. It is not terrible exactly, just earnest, like the village itself. The meat resists your bite in a way that suggests enthusiasm rather than skill. The ale fizzes half-heartedly. Around you, fishermen laugh too loudly at jokes that carry more repetition than wit. Traders argue over grain prices near the hearth, with the grave intensity of generals planning campaigns, and a dwarven merchant complains about taxes, while his companions shush him nervously, glancing toward the door as though tariffs might materialize if spoken of too boldly. You feel the subtle shift in conversation when your city accent slips into your ordering of food. It is not hostility, just recalibration. A reminder that you are a new note in an old melody. Eyes glance, then slide away. Someone lowers their voice by half a measure. You pretend not to notice. You smooth your gloves. You check your pack just once to be sure your scrolls are still tucked safely inside, their edges uncreased, their seals intact. Your training instructor's voice echoes in your memory. Preparedness is the difference between bravery and foolishness. You remind yourself that heroes must begin somewhere, and not all beginnings are grand. Sometimes they are drafty taverns and under-seasoned poultry. When you rise and approach the notice board near the door, you do so with quiet determination. The parchment notices flutter faintly in the tavern draft, each page curling at the corners like tired leaves. Lost cats described in affectionate detail. Chopped firewood requested before the coming damp spoils the stack. Mended roofs needed before winter presses its wet thumb against the shingles. Ordinary needs in an ordinary place. You study them carefully, as though one might suddenly transform into something glorious if only viewed from the correct angle. But they remain steadfastly mundane. And then you see it. A request written in careful looping script, the ink darker and more deliberate than the others. Nanny Jocelyn seeks the return of her stolen Yuletide tree topper, taken by mischievous kobolds during last week's festivities. The reward is generous, far more generous than the object itself would suggest. The sort of reward that might carry you through a fortnight of warm meals, and perhaps even respect. You picture the kobolds, candle wax on their snouts, cackling over stolen tinsel. You imagine yourself navigating their tunnels with steady courage, retrieving the delicate ornament, restoring cheer to a household. It is humble, yes, but it has shape. It has a clear ending. You linger too long imagining the gratitude, the warm praise. Perhaps even your name spoken kindly in the market square. Perhaps the fisherman would nod differently. Perhaps the tavern ale would taste richer when earned. A sudden brush at your shoulder interrupts you. A figure in fine leather, quiet and efficient, steps past with the ease of someone accustomed to moving through rooms without belonging to them. A gloved hand removes the notice from the board before you can react. The rogue does not even glance at you as she leaves. Her movements are economical, practiced. She has already calculated the tunnels, the likely resistance, the margin of profit. For her, this is not a story beginning. It is simply work. The door closes behind her. A draft replaces her absence. You remain standing there for a moment, feeling the first gentle sting of disappointment. It is not dramatic, not world-ending. No violins rise in the rafters. Just a small, quiet ache, like discovering you have arrived a minute too late for something that might have mattered. You tell yourself it was foolish to hesitate, that heroes do not daydream and notice boards. Yet the image of Nanny Jocelyn's looping script lingers in your thoughts longer than you expect. You turn back to the board. The parchment edges now seem thinner, more fragile. There is one posting left. An alchemist near the edge of town requires assistance collecting rare reagents. Compensation to be discussed upon completion. No mention of danger, no mention of glory, no guarantee of coin. The handwriting is sharp, practical. It offers nothing but ambiguity. Not glorious, not clear, not even generous, at least not on paper. But perhaps beginnings are not meant to be. Perhaps they are meant to test patience more than prowess. You consider what rare reagents might entail. Damp mushrooms blooming under fallen logs, resin gathered from salt pine bark, marsh reeds that stain the fingers green. It could be tedious, it could be perilous, or it could be neither, simply an afternoon of careful gathering in the company of fog. You take the notice. The parchment feels cool and slightly brittle in your grasp, as though unused to bold decisions. A few nearby patrons watch you with mild curiosity, but no one comments. There is no triumphant swell of music, no sudden recognition, just the soft crackle of the hearth and the low murmur of village life continuing, exactly as it did before you arrived. Outside, the fog has thickened. Lantern light blurs softly through the mist, halos suspended in damp air. The wooden planks of the tavern steps glisten faintly. Your breath joins the fog in small silver clouds as you make your way toward the salt pine woods. The path is narrower than you imagined, the earth yielding gently beneath your boots. Pine needles hush your steps. Somewhere in the distance, water laps against unseen shore. You feel it then, not triumph, not even excitement, but a steadier thing. A quiet resolve settling into place. The rogue may have taken the brighter opportunity. The kobolds may be someone else's story now. But this path, half hidden and uncertain, is yours. The mist does not part dramatically. It simply accepts you into its cool embrace. And as you walk, you begin to understand that the first step of any legend is rarely applause. More often, it is a foggy road, a modest errand, and the willingness to continue despite a small, honest disappointment. The houses thin as you walk. Mud deepens beneath your boots, each step making a soft, reluctant sound as though the earth itself is unsure of your passage. The village quiets gradually, not with any dramatic hush, but with the natural tapering of sound that comes when hearths grow distant and doors close against the damp. Laughter fades first, then conversation, then even the clatter of dishes dissolves into memory. What remains is the soft creak of shutters nudged by wind, and the low, indistinct murmur of lives continuing behind drawn curtains. The salt pine woods rise ahead, dark and patient, their trunks standing in close congregation like silent witnesses who have seen too much to be easily impressed. The fog thickens as you approach the tree line, curling low around fence posts and pooling in shallow dips of land. It does not rush or swirl dramatically. It lingers. It waits. You nearly miss the crooked house tucked beside the woods, its outline softened by mist and time alike. The roof sags gently at one corner. The fence listing around it appears more suggestion than boundary, yet its windows glow faintly green, not menacingly, but steadily, like the pulse of something carefully tended. Not the violent green of cursed flame, rather the patient hue of simmering tinctures and long study. You pause at the gate, reading the silence. There is no sign, no grand declaration of profession, only that steady glow. You take a breath, preparing to approach the door. Before you reach it, a small voice calls from behind you. You turn. A half-orc boy stands several paces away in the field, his boots damp and his shoulders squared with the fragile bravery of youth. His tusks are small still, barely peeking from his lower lip, and his hands clutch nothing but air. He explains, haltingly, that his ball rolled near the alchemist's fence. His parents forbid him from approaching. There are rumors, he says. Dark magic, necromancy, strange lights in the night, strange sounds beneath the floorboards, the kind of stories that grow comfortably in places where fog lingers and explanations do not. You glance toward the house. You glance back at the boy. His fear is real, but so is his hope. Helping him costs you nothing. The grass is wet and cold against your boots as you cross the narrow stretch between field and fence. Dew clings to your hem. The scarecrow nearby leans at an odd angle, its silhouette exaggerated by fog until it appears almost sentient, its stitched smile warped by shadow. For a fleeting moment, you understand how rumors begin. The green light from the windows flickers slightly as you straighten, ball in hand. Not a flare, just a gentle adjustment, as though a flame were being turned down beneath a glass vessel. You toss the ball lightly back toward the boy. He catches it clumsily but beams as though you have returned a crown jewel. His gratitude is swift and uncomplicated. Then he runs, boots splashing through shallow puddles, glancing only once over his shoulder before disappearing between two distant houses. The door opens. It does not creak. It does not slam. It opens with deliberate calm. A man stands framed in its greenish glow, grey-bearded, robed in practical layers stained faintly at the cuffs. His eyes are sharp, not suspicious, but assessing, the sort of gaze that measures before judging. "Most knock," he says mildly. There is no anger in his tone, only observation. You explain about the ball, the field, the rumors. You do not embellish. You do not apologize. You simply recount the small interruption as it occurred. He listens without interruption, gaze steady upon you, rather than the direction the boy fled. After a moment, he steps aside. Enter then, since you have already involved yourself. Inside his home smells of dried herbs and warm ash. Not decay, not rot. The scent is layered sage and crushed pine needle, something faintly metallic beneath it, something sweet simmering slowly in a glass vessel over low flame. Scrolls rest in deliberate disarray upon tables and shelves, arranged not for aesthetics but for access. Glass vessels bubble softly, releasing thin tendrils of steam that coil toward the rafters before dissolving. Mortars and pestles line a side counter, stained by long years of use, The floorboards creak in thoughtful protest beneath your weight. An orange cat, Percy, as you later learn, observes you with golden eyes from atop a high shelf. His tail flicks once, twice, as if marking time. He stretches with liquid grace before leaping onto a stack of books that looks precarious but does not fall. He settles there, paws tucked beneath his chest, gaze never leaving you. It is not distrust. It is curiosity sharpened by habit. The man closes the door behind you, sealing the green glow into something warmer, less uncanny. "My name," he says after a pause long enough to test your patience, "is Jorgen Vanberg." He studies your posture, your boots, the way your hand rests near your pack, as though prepared to retrieve a scroll at any moment. "I am not a necromancer." The statement is delivered without defensiveness, simply correction. "I am an alchemist," he continues, "and the fog suffocating this village is no simple weather pattern." He moves to a nearby table and gestures for you to approach. Spread before him are notes, sketches of tree lines, diagrams of currents, annotations in tight script. Small vials of captured fog rest stoppered beside them, each tinted faintly grey. He lifts one and holds it against the lamplight. The vapour within shifts unnaturally, recoiling from the flame as if aware. "Fogfen was not always so named," Jorgen says. "The mist has deepened these past seasons. It lingers longer. It carries weight." He does not dramatize the word. He lets it settle between you. Something beneath the woods binds it, something older than rumour. You think of the scarecrow, of the boy's fear, of the rogue who took the clearer path earlier this evening. Jorgen sets the vial down. "There are ruins within the Saltpine Woods," he says. "Remnants of a high elven settlement swallowed by time and regret. Their towers fell long before this village rose. But grief leaves impressions, deep ones." His gaze flickers briefly toward the window, where the fog presses faintly against the glass. "To understand what binds this mist, I must gather shadow dust from those ruins, the residue of what was lost." He turns back to you. "I require 7 handfuls." His tone is not cruel, but it is challenging. 7 handfuls implies time, exposure, patience. It is not a simple fetch of herbs near the roadside. It means entering the bones of something abandoned and gathering what remains without disturbing what still lingers. You consider the task. It promises no immediate praise, no cheering crowd, no looping script of gratitude pinned neatly to a board. It promises damp stones and silent corridors and the possibility of discovering that grief, once disturbed, does not always remain quiet. Yet the green glow of his windows now feels less ominous and more steadfast. The boy's retrieved ball lingers in your mind. The small choice that cost you nothing. The rogue's swift departure with her clearer quest. You accept. Not because it promises glory, but because it feels necessary. The woods receive you quietly. There is no dramatic threshold to cross, no sudden chill or whispering chorus to mark your entry. The salt pine trees simply close ranks behind you, their trunks tall and resin dark, their branches interlacing overhead like cathedral ribs shaped not by masons, but by centuries of patient growth. The path dissolves within a dozen paces. Moss thickens over stone. Pine needles soften the ground until even your careful steps seem absorbed before they can echo. The fog deepens with each breath you take, gathering around your shoulders, brushing your cheeks, slipping cool fingers beneath your collar. Sound changes first. The distant lap of unseen water fades. The faint murmur of Fogfen vanishes entirely. What remains is the small, intimate rhythm of your own breathing and the soft creak of leather when you shift your weight. Your lantern casts a modest golden halo that barely nudges the darkness aside. It does not banish shadow, it negotiates with it. The light feels less like a weapon and more like a companion, steady, contained, sufficient. You move slowly, not from fear, but from respect. The woods do not feel hostile, they feel watchful, as though they have held something fragile for a very long time and would prefer you not blunder through it carelessly. The ruins rise gradually from the earth, so gradually you almost mistake them for natural formations at first. A pale curve beneath moss resolves into a fallen arch. A white edge beneath creeping ivy reveals itself as the remnant of a pillar. The stone is the faint ivory of high elven craft, though softened now by lichen and damp, its once precise carvings blurred by centuries of rain and regret. Broken columns lie at gentle angles, not violently toppled but surrendered to gravity with weary grace. Collapsed archways frame nothing but fog, beauty undone not by fury but by time. You step through what was once a library. Shelving alcoves carved into stone walls now cradle only dust and brittle fragments of parchment too far gone to decipher. The air here feels denser, as though words once spoken still linger between the stones, reluctant to disperse. You imagine scholars seated cross-legged upon woven rugs, lamplight reflecting in attentive eyes. Now only your lantern answers back. Beyond it lies a storage chamber, half collapsed, the ceiling bowed inward but still holding. Clay jars line one remaining wall, most shattered, their contents long dissolved into earth. You kneel beside one intact vessel and brush away accumulated grime. Inside, nothing but hardened residue. Not what you seek. You rise and move on. In a crumbled temple alcove open to the courtyard, you find them. Jars of fine black dust, carefully sealed once, but now loosened by time. When you lift the lid of the first, the dust within shimmers faintly, as though stirred by a current unseen. It feels heavier than sand when you let it pour against your gloved palm, cooler than ash. It does not drift eagerly upon the air but settles with intention, clinging lightly to the grooves of your skin before falling back into the jar. Shadow dust. You collect it slowly, respectfully, one handful at a time into the prepared satchel you brought for this purpose. You do not rush. The space feels too solemn for haste. Each measured gathering feels less like taking and more like acknowledging. The lantern flame wavers once, as if in quiet agreement. When you step into the old fountain courtyard, the air shifts. The fountain itself stands dry at its center, its basin cracked, its sculpted figures worn faceless by rain. Vines coil through empty spouts. The fog here gathers more thickly, pooling low before rising in slow spirals. Your lantern's glow fractures strangely within it, scattering into muted halos. A shape gathers from mist. It does not erupt. It does not shriek. It condenses. A spectral outline of elven grace, tall and slender, its form flickering like reflection on water disturbed by unseen current. Features remain indistinct, but sorrow radiates from it. Not sharp or violent, but enduring. The kind of sorrow that has forgotten how to end. It reaches toward you. The motion is slow, almost hesitant. A hand formed of vapor and memory extends through the fog. You do not panic. Your pulse quickens, yes, but your training steadies you. You plant your boots more firmly against the stone. You draw a breath deep enough to anchor yourself. Steel would be useless here. Anger would be misplaced. What stands before you is not malice. It is restlessness. You raise your free hand and summon a gentle flare of conjured flame, not explosive, not searing, radiant. A sphere of warm golden light blossoms between your fingers, brighter than your lantern, yet softer than noon. It hums faintly, a note of reassurance rather than warning. You release it forward. The light passes through the spectre like sunrise through fog. There is no scream, no violent recoil. The shape shimmers, its edges loosening, its outline softening until it becomes indistinguishable from the surrounding mist. It dissolves with a whisper too faint to translate, leaving behind only a stillness that feels lighter. At your feet, more shadow dust settles gently across the stone. You kneel and gather another handful. A second spirit coalesces near the far archway, then a third beside the fountain's rim, each one less formed than the last, each one reaching not in aggression but in yearning. You meet them the same way, with calm breath, with steady light. Flame after flame unfolds from your hand, bathing the courtyard in quiet dawn. One by one, the shapes thin and disperse, fading not beneath steel but beneath understanding. The fog does not vanish, but it shifts. It feels less burdened. When you have gathered the seventh handful, measuring carefully to ensure completeness, you notice something half hidden beneath a fallen stone slab near the fountain's edge. Leather, darkened but intact, peeks from beneath moss and grit. You crouch and ease the slab aside with patient effort. Beneath it rests a journal, its binding worn yet miraculously preserved by the very damp that destroyed so much else. You open it by lantern glow. The script within is elegant, flowing across pages yellowed but legible. It tells of Silvara, a tide sage devoted to the balance between shore and sea. Her daughter drowned during the cataclysm that shattered this settlement, swept away when the waters rose beyond their bounds. Grief threads through every line of ink. Not dramatic, not wild, deep, controlled, desperate in its restraint. Silvara sought answers where none remained. She called upon Narathul, god of the drowned and forgotten, believing perhaps that forgotten things might return what was lost. The ritual answered, but too well. The ink trembles in places as the account describes it. A rift opening between realms, not with thunder, but with quiet inevitability. Fog spilling outward like breath from another world. Realizing her error, Silvara did not flee. She bound the rift to herself, anchored it through will and penance. She stretched its influence thin, diffusing its weight across forest and field, rather than allowing it to swallow all. She held Narathul at bay, not with conquest, but with endurance. Endless vigilance, endless sacrifice. The fog is not curse. It is sacrifice. You close the journal carefully, your fingers lingering a moment on its cover. The courtyard feels different now, not empty, but resolved. The remaining mist drifts softly between pillars, no longer pressing but resting. The air carries a gentler stillness. You secure the journal within your pack beside the shadow dust. The seventh handful settles with quiet finality. As you step back through broken archways and moss-covered halls, the woods seem less watchful and more accepting. Your lantern burns steadily, its glow sufficient. The fog parts just enough to guide your return without ceremony. You walk toward Fogfen with measured steps, bearing dust, journal, and understanding alike. You return to Jorgen. Jorgen reads the journal with growing understanding, his sharp eyes moving more quickly with each page, then slowing, then stopping altogether as certain passages settle into place. The green glow of his workroom reflects faintly against the parchment as he turns it toward the lamplight, tracing lines of ink with one careful finger. You watch his expression change, not dramatically, but incrementally. Curiosity gives way to recognition. Recognition deepens into something almost like reverence. When at last he closes the journal, he exhales through his nose, long and steady. "Silvera," he murmurs. "So that is the root of it." He does not speak her name with accusation, only respect. The shadow dust, he explains, will allow him to commune with what remains of her spirit, its lingering imprint bound still to the thinning rift. It is not enough to sever such a tether blindly. One must speak. One must understand the weight being carried before attempting to lift it. The dust, gathered from the very bones of her ruined home, will form the bridge. Blood thistle rose petals will anchor him firmly to the living world, ensuring the communion does not become an exchange. The rift is weak, yes, but weakness can be unpredictable. You nod. The task feels less like an errand now and more like continuation. The herbalist cottage sits near the heart of Fogfen, its windows fogged from within by steady warmth. She greets you with warm eyes and knowing smiles, as though she had expected this request long before you arrived. Blood thistle roses hang, drying from the rafters, their crimson petals dark as spilled wine. She selects them without hesitation, wrapping the delicate blooms in linen. "For anchoring," she says gently, "and for remembering." You step back into streets softened by mist, the parcel secure in your hands. Lanterns glow faintly along the lane. The fog feels thinner than before, not gone, but attentive. As you pass Nanny Yoslin's cottage, laughter spills from the open door. The rogue emerges just then, coin purse heavy at her belt, her posture loose with easy success. Someone calls after her in gratitude. She tosses a casual salute over her shoulder without breaking stride. For a moment, envy brushes you. It is quick and sharp, like the sting of cold air in lungs unprepared. She chose the clearer quest. She earned her praise. Her evening has shape and reward already secured. But the feeling passes as swiftly as it came. What waits for you is not applause, but it feels no less important. Perhaps more so. Back in the alchemist's house, the furniture has been moved aside. Tables pushed against walls, shelves cleared. A circle of salt gleams faintly across the wooden floor, each grain laid with deliberate precision. Symbols etched within it glow faintly green, then dim, then glow again as Jorgen works. Glass vessels simmer nearby, their contents thickening into a dark violet brew that swirls slowly, as if stirred by invisible currents. Percy observes from a high perch, tail flicking once in measured interest. You hand Jorgen the blood thistle petals. He crushes them gently between his fingers, letting their crimson dust fall into the potion. The violet deepens, taking on a richer hue, almost midnight at its core. "This will hold me fast," he says quietly. "Silvera must not carry another soul for her penance." He steps into the circle. The salt crunches faintly beneath his boots. He lifts the vessel and meets your gaze once, steady, certain, before drinking. The change is immediate, though not violent. The room cools as if a window has opened onto winter. Frost traces delicate patterns along the edges of the salt circle, creeping like lace across wood. The lantern flames lower but do not extinguish. The air thickens, not suffocating, but dense with presence. From the center of the circle, where violet vapor rises in slow spirals, a figure begins to take form. Silvera appears, not monstrous, not broken, but luminous. Her shape shimmers like moonlight beneath water, elongated and graceful, features softened by sorrow rather than distorted by rage. Long hair drifts around her shoulders as though suspended in tide. Her eyes hold depths that reflect both sea and sky. She does not scream. She does not accuse. She regards Jorgen first, then you, with quiet awareness. Her voice carries like distant surf across stone. She speaks of the rift, of the strain required to hold it closed, of Narathul pressing patiently from the other side, of exhaustion that has stretched across decades beyond mortal measure. The binding weakens, her strength thins. Soon, she says, the fog will no longer diffuse but gather. The god of the drowned and forgotten will seep fully into the world. She will release it willingly, she says, if granted one final comfort. One memory unmarred by grief. Jorgen's breath clouds faintly in the cold air. Name it, he says. Silvara's luminous form flickers softly. A honey-crisp glazed apple pie, she replies. My daughter's favorite. The request is so simple it nearly breaks the tension entirely. After rifts and gods and decades of penance, the longing reduces itself to sweetness and warmth and the memory of small hands dusted in flour. Jorgen closes his eyes briefly, then opens them with quiet resolve. He gestures toward Percy, who blinks slowly in response. The baker will be more agreeable with a cat present, he says. Percy does not resist as you lift him, though he tolerates the indignity with mild disdain, golden eyes narrowing slightly, as if to remind you that this cooperation is temporary and conditional. His warmth against your chest is grounding, alive, solid. You step once more into the fog. The streets feel different now, not merely misted, but expectant. Torvik Bronzebun answers his door after a firm knock, nightcap askew, beard braided loosely for sleep. Irritation furrows his brow until Percy shifts in your arms and reaches a paw toward him. The dwarf's sternness softens almost immediately. Ah, he grumbles, scratching behind Percy's ears. Well, that's different then. His bakery glows with oven light and lingering heat. The moment you step inside, warmth wraps around you like a blanket. Flour dusts the air in fine suspension, catching lamplight like snowfall. Torvik moves with efficient precision despite the hour. Butter folds into dough beneath steady hands. Apples slice into perfect crescent moons, their crisp scent bright and clean. Honey melts slowly into a golden glaze that glistens thickly as he brushes it across layered fruit. You assist where you can, rolling dough, steadying pans, passing ingredients. Percy claims a warm corner near the ovens, tail curled neatly around himself as if he has orchestrated this entire endeavor. The pie slides into the oven with quiet finality. You sit beside it as it bakes, the low hum of heat steady and reassuring. The scent begins subtly, then deepens, sweet apple mingling with butter and honey, a fragrance so profoundly comforting it almost aches. It fills the bakery, seeps into your clothes, settles into memory. Outside, fog presses faintly against the windows, but inside is warmth and purpose and something wholly human. For the first time tonight, you feel entirely at peace. Not because the danger has passed, not because the reward is certain, but because the task before you is clear and kind. A pie, for a mother who held back a god. When you return, the ritual circle glows brighter. The symbols Jorgen carved into the wood pulse with a steady rhythm now. Their earlier green deepened into something more luminous, more certain. The air inside the cottage hums faintly, not with tension, but with anticipation. Percy slips from your arms the moment you step across the threshold, reclaiming his high perch with dignified indifference, as though his part in this evening's work has been entirely transactional. Silvara waits within the circle. Her form is clearer than before, though no more solid. She shimmers like moonlight resting upon still water, luminous and fragile at once. The frost along the salt line glitters faintly, but it no longer creeps outward. It holds steady, as though pausing alongside her. Her gaze shifts toward the pie cradled in your hands. Warmth rises from it in soft curls, honey and apple weaving through the sharper scents of alchemical ash and crushed rose. For a fleeting moment, the cottage feels less like a place of ritual and more like a kitchen awaiting laughter. You step carefully to the edge of the circle. The salt crunches faintly beneath your boot. You kneel, not from obligation, but instinct, and offer the pie forward with both hands. You do not rush the gesture. You do not speak. Some offerings are diminished by explanation. The spirit's form brightens as she reaches. Her translucent fingers hover first, trembling slightly, before passing gently through the crust, and yet somehow she receives it. The pie does not fall. It rests within her luminous grasp, as though memory itself has taken shape. The honey glaze catches the ritual light and scatters it into soft gold across her face. For a moment, she smiles. Not the strained, distant curve of someone enduring, not the brittle composure of endless vigilance. This smile is simple, warm. It carries the echo of a kitchen long gone and small hands reaching eagerly across a wooden table. The sorrow that once defined her softens into something else, something lighter. Relief, perhaps, or completion. "I remember," she whispers, though the words ripple more than sound. The room seems to exhale with her. She closes her eyes, cradling the pie close, and releases the binding. The tremor that follows is gentle, not a quake, not a rupture. It feels like a held breath finally exhaled after decades of restraint. The air shifts pressure, then settles. The violet haze lingering within the circle thins to translucence. The frost tracing its edges melts into harmless beads of water that darken the wood before fading entirely. The salt line dims, its glow retreating into ordinary white. The symbols no longer pulse. They simply rest. The green light that once filled the cottage windows fades to a gentler amber, warm and earthly. Glass vessels cease their restless bubbling. The potion residue evaporates into nothing more ominous than steam. Jorgen sways slightly within the circle before catching himself against the edge of a nearby table. He draws in a long, steadying breath, color returning gradually to his cheeks. Outside, through the window panes, the fog begins to thin. Not instantly, not dramatically. There is no violent wind to scatter it, no sudden shaft of brilliance to banish it in spectacle. Instead, it loosens, it drifts, it lifts in slow, patient veils, as though satisfied that its vigil is no longer required. The shapes of nearby fences sharpen. The outline of the salt pine trunks grows more distinct. The world does not change, it clarifies. Silvara's form dims gently, not dissolving in distress but settling like tide retreating from shore. Her last expression remains that of quiet contentment. In the faintest shimmer of her fading outline, you glimpse not a guardian burdened by penance, but a mother seated beside her child. Then the light disperses entirely, leaving only stillness. Jorgen steps carefully out of the circle. The salt line breaks harmlessly beneath his heel. He studies the room, then the open journal resting upon the table, then finally you. There is no triumphant grin upon his face, no dramatic proclamation, only a deep, sincere nod. "It is done," he says quietly. The words carry weight not because they are loud, but because they are true. You step outside into the night. The air feels lighter, not thinner but unburdened. You draw a breath and find it easier than before, less laden with unseen pressure. The dampness remains, but it no longer presses against your chest. Above, the sky reveals itself in widening patches. Stars, faint but present, glimmer overhead, shy and scattered at first, then clearer as the mist continues to recede. They look almost surprised to be seen. The village sleeps unaware. Behind shuttered windows, fishermen dream of tides and traders of markets. The half-orc boy clutches his reclaimed ball beside his bed. Nanny Jocelyn likely rests content beside a recovered tree topper. None of them know how near the rift had come to widening. None of them will wake with knowledge of Narathal pressing at the veil between realms. They will simply rise to clearer air, to softer light, to a morning less heavy than the evenings before it. They will not know that grief transformed into grace spared them something vast and terrible. They will not know that a pie baked in the quiet hours of night became the final kindness a weary spirit required to let go. Your boots are muddy now beyond saving. Your purse is lighter than you hoped it might be when you first stepped into Fogfen Fisherstead. No generous bounty awaits you at dawn. No crowd gathers. No bard composes hurried verses in your honor. Your body aches with honest fatigue. Your shoulders feel the weight of hours spent walking, gathering, carrying. The faint scent of honey and baked apple still clings to your gloves, mingling with pine and ash. But your heart feels full. You are not yet a legend. No statues stand in your honor. No children point at you in awe. Your name will not be etched into marble nor shouted across tavern halls. Yet somewhere beyond sight, a spirit rests beside her daughter. A rift between realms lies gently closed. A god of the drowned and forgotten finds no purchase here tonight. And a village that barely noticed your arrival will wake tomorrow to clearer skies. That is not glory. It is something quieter, something steadier. And it is enough. So now, dear adventurer, let your shoulders loosen. Let the warmth of bakery ovens linger in your memory. Let the fog drift gently from your thoughts as it drifts now from the fields beyond Fogfen. Allow yourself the small private satisfaction of work done without witness. Your quest is complete for tonight, and you may rest. Thank you for journeying with Serene Slumber Tales.